Hi guys, welcome to my mobile office. John calls it my mama-mobile. Today I'd like to share with you a few of my most memorable and favorite images that I've taken, and share also the settings that I use to take them, the circumstances surrounding the picture. And yeah, it's just, it's always good to look back on things, figure out, okay, how did I do this? What can I do next time that I'm in a similar situation? And go from there. Okay, let's do this. The first image is one that I took in the Rocky Mountains. It is at Bow Lake. The plan was for me to get there at sunrise. Now, I woke up very, very early and I set my GPS and I was heading out from Canmore, and it was a good maybe hour drive away from Bow Lake. And I got in the car and I started going, and for the first part of the trip, it was highways, so it was pretty smooth driving, and I thought, this is great. I'm going to get there in plenty of time. However, then all of a sudden, I needed to turn off onto a much smaller road, and it was dark and icy and cold, and I could not tell the little bit of road that my headlights were lighting up as I went. I couldn't tell if the two tire tracks paths on the road were dirt and so I could go a little faster, or if they were ice. So it was a 90 kilometer an hour zone for driving, and I was going along at 20 kilometers an hour. I still made it for sunrise. I was hoping and praying the whole way there that I would make it on time. I was also wondering a lot if I should be turning back, but I decided, okay, there's not very many people on the roads. I'm going very, very slowly. I'm just going to keep going for a few more minutes. And I arrived. Bow Lake is just stunning. There are mountains, the lake is crisp and clean. It is, just amazing. But the one thing I can tell you about this morning was that it was cold. Good morning. After about 2 hours of driving before the sun came up, I finally made it to Bow Lake. I think it may have been the coldest, okay, it's a tie with some other outings, but one of the coldest photography moments that I have ever had. It was very, very cold. The sun was just coming up over the mountains and lighting up the lake and the mist on the lake, and it was just fantastic. This image is definitely one of my all-time favorite images that I have ever taken. Okay, that was quite a hike through the snow to get here. This may be the best vantage point I'm going to get without going all the way back around, and that's okay. I'm going to work here because the sunlight looks really beautiful. Okay, it's very cold. This image in particular, I was capturing the sunrise, and so oftentimes at sunrise or sunset, I will take a lot of images, especially as the sun is moving just at that critical point. For this image, I have ISO 100 and 20 seconds, f22. Now, the reason that I chose f22 is so that I could get that starburst effect on the sun. The higher aperture like F22, F16, F19, the higher number that you use for your f-stop, the more likely you are to capture a sunburst. So I had F22, which I believe was probably the highest f-stop I could use in this situation. I had ISO 100 so that I could get the most detail possible. I probably could have gone to ISO 50, but ISO 100 worked well. And 20 seconds gave me just enough time for, one, the clouds are just slightly streaking. And against the beautiful blue sky, that is an effect that I just really wanted to capture. I didn't want it to be too long because then it might actually, with the wispiness of the little bit of cloud, the clouds might actually disappear. But I wanted it to be long enough to see that motion. And also the beautiful glassy water was already crystal and smooth and beautiful, but the 20 seconds was just enough to give it even more of a glassy look. And so, yeah, I took several images. This is the one that was my favorite image. I've done some wide angles, I've done some panoramics, and I've turned around and captured the mountain behind me. Right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the graduated neutral density filter plus the 3-stop ND filter, see what a long exposure will do to the water and the mist. When I was standing out there, it was so cold. There was nobody around, and it was so quiet. And all of a sudden, I heard rustling behind me. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, is it a bear? And I panicked. You can see that in my video.
Someone there?
I panicked, and thankfully I was calling out. I was like, is anybody there? Is anybody there? Nobody was answering, and I thought, oh, it has to be an animal. Now, I was close to my car, but I wasn't that close, and the snow was quite deep.
Oh good, it's a person.
And oh, thankfully, after about 30 seconds of me thinking, oh my goodness, this man, I guess, I don't know if he had earphones on or what, but he came over the rise and kept walking down to the water. So, Bow Lake in Alberta and in Canada is just gorgeous. A memorable image for sure. I will never, ever forget it. This is definitely frostbite weather. So, okay, onward. Beautiful. Another place that was absolutely amazing to me, I think I'm going to talk about the Rockies here because it's just, the Rockies had so much meaning to me. It was the first place that I had traveled in 18 years, and it was just, it floored me. I had never seen mountains before, not like this. And it was just, it did, I don't know. How can you describe a life-changing experience? But this image that I'm going to show you here is at Emerald Lake. Emerald Lake is probably one of the most picturesque, quietest, beautiful places that I have ever seen. And I highly recommend going there if you're going to head out to the Rocky Mountains. This image, it was like a winter wonderland there. The snow falls on the trees, it clings to the branches, and it doesn't let go. You know, all those Christmas cards that you see where the snow is just perfect. This was one of those places. Everywhere you looked, that's what it was. When you arrive at Emerald Lake, there's a bridge, and there's a view to the left of the mountains, and there's a view to the right. And the view to the right has, there's like a little building and just trees, and this water, the lake that goes around in the area. I loved the way the trees looked 3D. So when I was looking at them, it was like there was the middle tree, and it went back into like just this big V, and there were also trees on the side, and that the 3D of that image was what inspired me the most. So that's what I wanted to capture in this image. Now, it was the bridge was actually in a perfect place because I was far enough away from it to be able to capture that, and also not so close that I had to worry too much about depth of field. So I set my f-stop to f13 because it gave me a good depth of field to have a nice crisp image from front to back, given how far I was standing away from my subject. And also there was minimal distortion from the lens because f13, middle of the road f-stops will give you the least vignetting and distortion on your lens. Vignetting being the dark ring that sometimes you see around the outside, and distortion of the shapes and the elements in the image. So f13 was this image, and it was ISO 100 as well. I wanted to get a nice high quality detailed image, and it was only 1/8 of a second. There was very little moving. If there was something moving a lot, then 1/8 of a second might have been actually too long. But I didn't have any close-up branches or a foreground element that would make that an issue. So I was on aperture priority in my camera, and 1/8 of a second is what the camera determined once I decided on f13 and ISO 100. And looking at it, I thought, yep, 1/8, that's gonna work. It's great. Now, the last image I want to talk to you about kind of reminds me of a Rorschach test. Have you ever seen those where, you know, the psychiatrist is saying to a person, the ink blot test, what does this remind you of? And it's this interesting pattern that kind of looks like someone squirted some ink on a sheet of paper, folded the paper and opened it up. So this image reminds me of that only a little bit because the mountains and the clouds and the trees are forming a pattern that is perfectly mirrored in the water, and it just draws me right in. I absolutely love reflections in an image. Now, this is what I was talking about when we arrive at Emerald Lake. This is the view that captures your eye. It's just stunning. I wanted to capture the mountains and the trees and the clouds mirrored perfectly right in the middle on that beautiful lake, Emerald Lake. What I wanted to make sure I didn't do was put on my polarizer and get rid of the reflection. So I had no polarizer on because I wanted to get the perfectly reflecting water. A polarizer will often get rid of the reflection on top of a water so that you can see right down to the bottom. I did not want that today. This image I had ISO 500 and f8, and 1/250th of a second. Now, it's been a while, so I can only actually guess as to why I would have chosen ISO 500. But I think I remember why it was, and that was that there were vans and people moving along this part of the bridge, making it move. So even though I was standing stationary with a tripod, I wanted to have a bit of a faster shutter speed so that, one, the clouds wouldn't be streaking, and two, I wouldn't have motion blur due to the tripod shaking just a little bit because of the traffic. So ISO 500 gave me the opportunity to get 1/250th of a second on my shutter speed, and F8 is again that middle of the road f-stop that gives you no distortion, no vignetting. I wanted to get the entire scene. I didn't want the lighting to be distorted at the edges. I didn't want it to curve at the edges. I just wanted it to be that perfect mirror. I set my horizon right in the middle so that I could get that, and I just love it. I feel like it's just a very creative looking image when you look at it, because it's just, where do you see that daily, right? It's amazing. I can't go on and on enough about how much I love the mountains. Those are my 3 favorite images from the Rocky Mountains, and probably 3 of my favorite images from my entire landscape photography career thus far, although I have thousands and thousands of images on my computer. You should see how many hard drives I have. But anyway, I really wanted to share those experiences with you, and a few of you have asked me to share my settings, and I haven't always had an opportunity when I'm out to do as much sharing as I'd like, so I thought this video I would do that. I have a bit of an announcement. I am working on a book. I started writing a book probably about a year ago. Things got a little bit busy and it got waylaid, but I have gotten myself back on track and I'm really enjoying it. I am writing about things like my experience with photography, with YouTube, with photography gear, travel, all of that. I just would really like to share my story and have a way to encourage all of you to keep taking pictures and to know that there is so much that you can do with this creative pursuit and how much it can impact your life and make things awesome. So there's lots of technical parts to the video. I will talk, not the video, the book. I talk a little bit about stock photography. I talk about my portrait photography in the past, my YouTube business, all of it. And I can't tell you exactly when it's going to come out, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm working on it and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. Anyway, this has been a great afternoon, and ooh, I see someone on the lake there paddleboarding, a whole bunch of people. That's really neat. It's cold. That's very cold. I think they're wearing wetsuits. And it's time for me to go. So thanks for coming along, guys, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.